Get great spring savings at Safeway. This week at Safeway, 12 packs of 12-ounce cans or 8 packs of 12-ounce bottles of Coca-Cola, Pepsi, 7-Up, or Dr. Pepper are buy 2, get 3 free when you buy 5. Plus CRV, limit 3 free items. Plus get sweet corn for just 7 cents each with digital coupon, limit 10. Also this week at Safeway, get value packs of USDA Choice Boneless Beef Tri-Tip Roast for $3.97 per pound with digital coupon, limit 2 packages. Visit Safeway.com or head in store for more deals.
Welcome back to an all-new Mystery and Murder analysis by Dr. Phil, where we deep dive into some of the most infamous criminal minds and headline-making true crime news stories. Now, in the next episodes, we're going to unpack the unsettling story of Amy Carlson, known to the world as Mother God. Now, at first glance, she appeared to be a free-spirited hippie with a mission to spread love and happiness. But beneath that facade, she was leading what would become widely regarded as an infamous cult, built on sleep deprivation, forced labor, and financial exploitation. In a twist I never saw coming, her movement would ultimately lead to her shocking and tragic demise. Now, this story hits close to home for me because before Amy's case became the subject of a widely publicized HBO documentary, her family turned to me in desperation. About 4 years ago, prior to Amy's death, her mother and sisters appeared on Dr. Phil, seeking a way to reconnect with Amy, if at all possible, and plead with her to stop her disturbing downward spiral and get some help, any kind of help. Amy herself did her first ever television interview with me, and let's just say it's one that I'll never forget. Now, I want to pull the curtain back on how this happened on Dr. Phil. We've done a lot of work on cults, and it's estimated, get this, that there are anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 cults actively operating in the United States at any one time. And you think, how is that possible? It's possible because of the internet. So many of these operate and reach people through the internet. People up late at night and they start listening and they start paying attention, and they're lost, they're lonely, they're forlorn, and people start getting inside their head. And so they start following, and then they start contributing. And then once or twice a year, they have a rally somewhere. And when they go to this rally, they get them to actually start attending in the real world. They start going to a retreat or somewhere, and then boom, they've got them. And we'll talk later about how they get people into cults, because you're probably thinking, I can't imagine anybody ever getting sucked into this sort of thing. But here's the thing that was shocking to us on the Dr. Phil staff. You typically reach out to these folks and try to talk to them, and they go, no way, Jose, no way am I talking to you. No way am I letting cameras get near me. But we always try. We always say, look, we'll let you tell your story. We'll let you say whatever you want to say. There's always the hope that they'll do this. And when we reached out to Amy Carlson, Mother God, she said, yes, yeah, I'll talk to you. She wouldn't come, but she said she would plug in electronically and do the interview from where she was hanging out. And so she agreed to the interview, actually went on camera, which was very unusual. You would think these leaders, they're narcissistic and they want all this attention, but when somebody of an investigative nature comes along, they usually run the other way. Not her. She said, sure, I'll talk to you. And there she was in all of her splendor. She was in bed. She had all this stuff around her, all these things behind her on the wall. She was on her best behavior at the time. Now, we're going to explore not only the shocking details of Amy's life and what I believe is a cult, I think what a lot of people believe is a cult. Now, they deny that. They say, nope, we're not a cult. We're a religious group. We're a religious sect. But they absolutely deny that they're a cult. So this is my opinion. They deny it. It's up to you to decide. In my opinion, we're going to explore the life and what I call a cult that she created, but also dive deeper into her past to uncover the real person behind these headlines, because these people aren't born as what I call cult leaders. They're just people that grew up, they went to grade school, they played in the backyard, they did all this stuff. So how do they wind up being these people? The reason I'm focusing on this one is my good friend, Rick Ross, who is, I think, the top cult expert in the world and who's been on the show many times and we've worked together many times, told me he believed that this was perhaps the most dangerous cult he had ever encountered. Now, think about that. We think about Jonestown and what happened down there. He puts this on a short list of the most dangerous cults he had ever dealt with. So how does a vibrant woman with so much promise and potential wind up isolated from society, emaciated, and the color blue? Yeah, you heard that right. She was blue, and ultimately meet such a grotesque and tragic end. And when we get to that, you're going to be really surprised at how she died and what they did with her body after she died. Now, this is one of those instances where the truth is really stranger than fiction. I've seen a lot. This was strange. This was one of the most unusual cults and most fascinating cult leaders you will ever encounter. As I've said, my direct involvement with this case began because Amy's family obviously was very worried about her, and with good reason. Over the years, the woman they thought they knew inside and out had morphed into a complete stranger. Watching Amy abandon her children and struggle with alcohol, that was devastating enough. But when the family became convinced that Amy's religious group, Love Has Won, was actually a dangerous cult, they knew they had to act. And I respected how Amy's sisters, Chelsea and Tara, along with their mother, Linda, came on my show hoping they might finally get through to her and shed light on the toxic nature of cults. Let me start with you, Mom. You say this is not the daughter that you raised.
That is correct. Amy is not who I raised.
When was the last time you talked to her?
Probably about a year and a half ago.
This family could not make sense out of their estrangement. How did this story all begin? Now, to try to understand Amy, let's take a look at her backstory. As I said, these people aren't born evil. They're not born cult leaders. Amy was born in Kansas, and her parents divorced when she was young. At the age of 9, Amy's mother remarried and moved to Oklahoma City. They weren't from some weird place or whatever. We're talking about Kansas and Oklahoma. A custody battle ensued, and she was caught up in the middle of that. She was shuffled back and forth between her parents' homes in Kansas and Oklahoma, and it's alleged that her childhood wasn't a happy one. But a lot of children have unhappy childhoods, and they don't wind up cult leaders. In fact, Amy claimed to have been abused by her stepmother, a trauma that eventually resulted in Amy moving back in with her mother full time. Now, afterwards, they settled down in Dallas. So we've now gone Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. For a while, things seemed to get better for Amy. She was a good student. She sang in the school choir, for God's sake. She sang in the choir. She was involved in theater. Her younger sister, Chelsea, just really idolized her back then. She looked up to her. This was someone she wanted to emulate and said she wanted to be just like her. And at this point in her life, Amy wasn't yet viewed as really even a leader. She was a member of the choir. She wasn't like the leader of the choir. Those who knew her best did not describe her as really dominant. That part of Amy's character would emerge really much later. By all accounts, she was a mischievous, fun-loving, cherub-faced girl who remained rather childlike, clinging to the comforts of her girlhood, even decorating her teenage bedroom with unicorns. She was innocent, quick to laugh, and had all the promise in the world, despite the fact that she had been through, some pretty tough times. When a marriage dissolves, clearly children oftentimes get caught in the middle, and she said she had been abused, and then she's moving around between and one home for a while, and then with the other parent, and back, forth, in ping pong back and forth. We know that the divorce impacted her negatively. She didn't feel secure. She didn't feel comfortable in her life early on. Coming up, pretty soon, it became evident that the Amy train was running off the track. Hey, Dr. Phil here. Your savings are at risk. With the economy on shaky ground, the dollar losing value, and a $2 trillion deficit, things could spiral. Don't wait for the worst. Take control of your financial future now. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. What are you going to do to protect what's yours? Claim your special offer and learn how to reinforce your financial future. Visit drphilgold.com to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Visit drphilgold.com today. You've heard me talk about Jace Medical. If not, listen up, because they're doing incredible work in medical preparedness. And today, I've got two major updates to share. First up, the ivermectin use case. You've probably seen the headlines calling it a wonder drug. The scientist who discovered it even won a Nobel Prize, and now Jace is offering a 30-day supply at the best price you'll find anywhere. Next, the upgraded Jace case, an emergency supply of antibiotics delivered to your door. They've doubled the number of medications to 10 at just $20 more. And now, the most comprehensive and affordable kit available. Get it before you need it. Don't wait, order today. Visit jace.com and use code PHIL at checkout for a special discount. That's JASE.com, code PHIL. According to the National Library of Medicine, an increasing number of children across the world experience family instability due to divorce and separation. People say the divorce rate's 50%, and that's really not true. It's more like mid-30s. It depends on whether you're talking first divorce, second divorce, third divorce. It gets more complicated as you go along, but it's significant. And of course, not all children with divorced parents develop issues. Many children whose parents divorce are resilient, and they don't exhibit obvious psychological problems. And there are parents who don't use them as pawns and don't use them as a rope in a tug-of-war. They just kind of say, okay, we'll put the children's needs ahead of our own. We're not going to have a power struggle with them in the middle. We're not going to use them to get at each other. Sometimes that's not the case, and unspoken issues can really take root. Some of the key ways the effects of divorce can manifest in children is they get at high risk. That's the best way to describe it. Children from divorced homes, particularly if it's a messy divorce, they're at higher risk, which means there's a higher degree of occurrence of such things like emotional distress, behavioral issues, academic decline. So kids that maybe were pretty well adjusted to begin with start to show up with sadness and anger and fear and anxiety and guilt. And they start to show maybe aggression or withdraw, acting out, difficulty concentrating. Maybe you have changes in their eating or sleep patterns. They might have been really good students and all of a sudden their grades they might start to decline or just fall off a cliff. And they tend to have relationship difficulties because they don't trust. They go, yeah, I trusted my parents. I thought they were my soft place to fall, and I see what happens there. And then they watch how their parents model relationship behaviors. And so they go out and emulate that, so they contaminate their relationships. I can tell you this, children find a way that when things go wrong, they blame themselves. They figure out how, this is my fault some kind of way. And so their self-esteem starts to go down. It really starts to bother them. And they have trouble, as I said, with trust, so they have attachment issues. So with all of this increased likelihood of mental health issues, performance issues, school issues, relationship issues, they're kind of cut adrift. The number one need in all people is acceptance. And some synonyms for that are belongingness, approval, acceptance, belongingness, approval. So these kids don't feel that, so they're seeking it out. They're looking for somewhere that they can belong. You hear gang members talk about that. They say, I didn't have a role model at home. I didn't have a father at home. He was out of the home. And so these gangs in our neighborhood, they started being my role models. They accepted me. And that became my family. So that's what happens to these kids. They become vulnerable. Some children might start having physical symptoms, headaches, stomach aches, changes in appetite, distress reactions. So if you do get a child caught up in all this, a lot of things start happening. And I think that's a lot of what contributed to Amy as she unfolded. Now, kids are resilient. I get that because as I said, not all kids that go through this become leaders of dangerous cults. Something like being a child of divorce, of course, doesn't mean you're destined for a life of gloom and doom. You may be one yourself or know someone that is, and you wound up on your feet. But the trifecta of divorce, custody battle, and this alleged abuse could have certainly been something that came together at a point in time that made her really vulnerable or hungry, really hungry for somewhere to fit in, somewhere to belong. It just can make someone desperate to find their place in the world. And if they can't find it, they might try to create it. Children are some of the most vulnerable people in our society. They have to rely on others to take care of them. And when those basic needs for care are not met, it just comes on and expresses itself in a lot of ways. And how will you recognize that? Very predictable. Anxiety, depression, substance abuse. They're at risk for drugs or alcohol, promiscuity. And then there's something called DID. This is dissociative identity disorder. They don't like their life, so they just kind of go into a fantasy land and start to create a world of their own. It's a fantasy. And then there's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. This is where they show reactions to certain trigger or events or elements that put them into panic attacks and things of that nature. And it's not always what you think. You might think their parents were yelling and screaming, and so if they hear yelling and screaming, they do that. It might be the smell of a certain fabric. When their parents were yelling and screaming, maybe they went and hid in a favorite chair and it had a smell of the fabric. They might smell that fabric later and it brings them back to that moment. So you never really know what the triggers might be. But back to Amy, despite her difficulties growing up, it seemed like she was heading in the right direction as a young adult. And those who knew her best said that they had every reason to believe that she'd be able to live a healthy and fulfilled life. But pretty soon, it became evident that the Amy train was running off the track. Amy lacked stability and direction, and her family says that her taste in men was questionable, to say the very least. Remember, I said the number one need is acceptance. The number one need is approval, belongingness. Sometimes these people that experience this, they get to the point where they're just kind of anybody's dog that'll hunt with them. And so they're not very discerning about who they connect to.
Amy was married 3 times by the time she was in her early 20s.
Amy had 3 children with 3 different dads.
After her 3rd child was born, Amy became very distant.
She did neglect her children.
Around 2006, she started acting strangely.
Amy has bounced around from different states.
She started calling herself Mother God, and she believed that she was God.
According to Amy's own mother, Amy lacked the maternal gene and seemed disconnected from her children. And if you're a mother, you know what I'm talking about. You either have it or you don't. If they're painting by the numbers, if they're going through the motions, it's real obvious. She was always eager to leave the children in order to pursue her own whims. It also became clear to others that Amy was searching for some deep meaning in life. And I know I'm repeating myself, but this is important for all of us to focus on, for ourselves and for our children, our grandchildren. The number one need in all people is to belong to something, to feel accepted. You don't want to feel that if you died, people wouldn't find your body for 2 weeks. Nobody would be looking for you because nobody missed you. You don't belong to anybody or anything. You're just out there adrift. They just knew that she was looking for something and that she was trying to find her footing spiritually and religiously. And this is where things really started to take a turn. Coming up, they weren't on a mission from God. They became God, Mother God and Father God. The next time you gather with family, enjoy Balance of Nature supplements as an addition to your favorite dishes. Our veggie supplement, made from 15 ingredients like garlic, onion, and cayenne pepper, can easily be opened and added to your favorite dishes like homemade soups or dips. Not to mention our fruits supplement, which is made from 16 ingredients like banana, strawberries, and mango, making it a great addition to your homemade smoothies. Start your journey with Balance of Nature. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first preferred set as a new preferred customer, with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code Dr. Phil. That's DRPHIL. In the mid-2000s, Amy began to seek connection with New Age spiritual thought. She would often visit a website called lightworkers.org, which if you visit the website now, this is what it says in their About Us section. Our mission at lightworkers.org is to provide a transformative online platform for individuals seeking spiritual growth, healing, and enlightenment. Through our community, we offer a supportive space for people to connect with like-minded others, access valuable resources, and explore new ideas and practices. End quote. Seems innocent enough. It was clearly enticing to Amy, but it's on the website that Amy began communicating with a man who referred to himself as Amaranth White Eagle. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because it's just not in my vocabulary, Amaranth. Amaranth White Eagle. This is a man who would go on to call himself Father God and anoint Amy Mother God. Now, it doesn't seem coincidental that around this time, Amy began making outlandish proclamations. For example, she claimed that a prophetic voice told her she was destined to go on to become the President of the United States. Now, you might be thinking, hey, could happen, maybe. She was also drawing closer to this White Eagle character, calling him her twin flame and declaring that they shared the same soul. Presidential run is starting to seem a little less likely to me. Amy began to believe they had critical work to do together for all mankind. Now, Amy's sister Tara said Amy's involvement with White Eagle was the beginning of the end. Like a switch just flipped. Before long, it seemed like it was impossible to talk to Amy. Conversations with her became pointless. They became circular. No matter what you said, she would just bring it back to this circular reasoning. Amy was fully convinced of her spiritual beliefs and seemed completely divorced from reality. She fully abandoned her children. Her loved ones' pleas fell on deaf ears. Amy now had one goal and one goal only: to awaken and save every human on the planet. Now, here's the issue. You may think, hey, listen, so a lot of people want to save the world. A lot of people want to be do-gooders. But this has a very narcissistic, grandiose flair to it. She abandons her children. She wants to save everybody in the world, every soul on the planet. Well, start at home, right? Take care of your own children. You don't save everybody on the planet without starting with your own children, your own family, your own loved ones. You nurture and share and care with those people. But if you just turn your back on them and walk away, isn't that a contradiction? Well, it's not if you're a narcissist. It's not if you are so grandiose that you're going to save the planet, but when you're a narcissist, you only see things from your point of view. And anybody that disagrees with that is a terrible annoyance. You have no time for them. They don't get it. They don't understand. They're not smart enough. They just can't function at your level. So to say you need to take care of your own kids instead of save the world, it's like, look, I have more important things to do. You don't understand. I'm transcending everything else. And they don't read the room. They don't recognize that, hey, that is grandiose and it's contradictory. How can you say that and your own children are suffering the loss of their mother? I didn't medically treat Amy. I didn't treat her at all. But the way she cut ties and hit the road, leaving everything to be with this White Eagle fellow, sounds like a classic case of folie à deux, which translates from French into the madness of two. You guys that follow me all know that I did the Gypsy Rose story. She was involved by her mother abusing her, and it was a situation where she just kept her sick and used her, and then she got connected with this other guy who thought he was a 500-year-old vampire, and the two of them connected and conspired to kill her mother. Folie à deux. I mean, it's like individually they're clearly mentally ill. Together, 1 + 1 = 10, and they multiplicatively become evil and action-oriented. This is not currently in the DSM-5. As experts say, there's just not enough criteria to support it officially being entered. but it's considered to be under the umbrella of delusional disorders. Now let's go back to when she was still younger and in school, and I said she had a tendency towards dissociative adjustment, where she didn't particularly love her life, so she would just dissociate from it and go into fantasy land. Now, there was a time when people referred to this as split personalities. They would just become somebody else. They would take on a new identity, have a new voice, a new accent, a new set of memories, and all. That was very rare, but it's on a continuum. And she was described as being rather dissociative, where she would just kind of associate away from her childhood or her teens and go into a fantasy land. And now you see this madness of two, where they just decide together, the two of them are going to conquer the world. They're going to save everybody. It's kind of on the continuum, so it's not unpredicted that she might get involved with something like this. So Amy and White Eagle connected and began to feed off of one another, convincing one another of their importance. Just think about it. Mother God, Father God. They start telling each other just how terribly important they are and how they're going to rule the world and save the world. And they start imputing to each other these powers, and you have somebody telling you this and you're telling it back to them, and before you know it, man, the world looks flat. You convinced each other of anything. And in their eyes, they were the chosen ones who must guide humanity out of the darkness. And through delusion, they justified that their actions were acceptable. It was not just fine, but essential. It wasn't like, oh, this is okay. We're on a mission here. They weren't on a mission from God. Understand, this is where you jump the shark. They weren't on a mission from God. They became God, Mother God and Father God, that they abandoned their normal life duties like raising children and having a 9-to-5, etc. This seemed like a way for both of them to escape the real world, be it the mundane or stressful facts of life, and a way to create their own reality under the guise of religious enlightenment. And let me tell you, when you get somebody that is into what we refer to as religiosity, and that's different than somebody that's being spiritually awakened or deeply religious. I have no problem with that. I know people that are deeply religious, they're sincere about it, they live it, they love it, it defines them. But religiosity is when it possesses them and they are delusional. They believe they have these powers and that everyone else is beneath them. So from here, Amy decides to follow White Eagle to Crestone, Colorado, and it seems like the perfect place to set up a new holy community. It was nicknamed the Bloodless Valley by Native Americans in the past because it was considered a peaceful place to pilgrimage. It's a tranquil area. It's bordered by stunning mountain peaks. And in recent years, the area has become a prime hub for UFO enthusiasts. Now, New Age spiritualists and all types of healers kind of flocked to this area too. It was kind of a transcendental, peaceful place where people with unconventional spiritual beliefs can congregate and not judge each other. Amy said she was releasing what she called her relationship with the outside world in an effort to connect with a higher, more evolved power. And before long, Amy and White Eagle were posting content regularly on YouTube. Remember, I said there were like 5,000 to 10,000 cults operating because of the internet. It's like you go fishing, you throw one hook out there, you might get one fish. You throw a lot of hooks out in the water, you might get a lot of fish. So you just throw hooks out there, somebody's gonna bite. And they started throwing these ideological hooks out onto the internet, espousing their beliefs, with Amy using the name the Galactic Free Press. And at first, Amy seemed to be just regurgitating what she heard from others. She talked about an alleged extraterrestrial organization called Ashtar Command, claiming it would save humanity. Ideas that had been floating around since the 1950s. She referenced celestial events and threw around vague, recycled kind of New Age philosophies as if parenting someone else's script. But soon, it seemed that Amy began craving something more. Authority, after all. She had taken on this view, this new title of Mother God, and let's face it, that's a lot to live up to. You're Mother God. She didn't want to be just another follower. She wanted to be in control, to create her own doctrine and to lead. And that's how Love Has Won was born. Because at that point she said, okay, I got to do something original. I got to do something unique. And that's how Love Has Won came into being. And when Amy joined me on my show, my goal was to help her by genuinely listening, attempting to understand her beliefs, and demonstrating that we were all coming from a place of concern and empathy. Now, let me tell you why I was taking that approach. Because a lot of people thought, you need to get in her face right away and say, are you some kind of nut job? You're a narcissist? What makes you think you, of all people, are Mother God? That's a sacrilege. That's blasphemy. How dare you say that? Listen, go to my podcast, Fill in the Blanks, and listen to the episode I have on why you don't want to argue with a narcissist, and you'll understand why I took the approach that I took. But even hostage negotiators for the FBI and Homeland Security will tell you that if you ever want to get hostages from a hostage taker, the number one predictor of whether you're ever going to get them out alive or not is whether or not the hostage taker believes that you understand why they took them in the first place. They need to know they've made their point. They need to know you get why they took those hostages to begin with. If they don't feel like you understand that, your chance of getting those hostages back alive goes way, way down. But if you're talking to them and they go, okay, he or she gets it. They know why I did this. They know why I'm holding these people. They know why I had to do something desperate. They understand me. I don't need to hold him anymore. I've made my point. That's your best chance of getting them back. So when I'm talking with her, I thought, okay, I want her to know that I get her point of view. Not that I agree with it. Not that I think it's right or that she's doing the right thing, but I want her to feel heard, H-E-A-R-D, not H-U-R-T, heard. I want her to feel heard. Yet she firmly denied needing any help. It didn't matter that I understood. It became clear to me that maintaining a perception of control was extremely important to her. Just listen to how she described herself and her journey.
I was called onto a mission in 2006, and I just surrendered and embraced truth. It's okay. I am God. I am Mother Gaia, Mother Earth, Great Spirit, Spider Woman, White Buffalo Calf Woman. My angels told me that I had to go serve humanity and that I had to give up everything. I did that, and I went to Colorado. Love Has Won is just the new paradigm that we all can share in unity. I wanted to bring joy, which is reality, and I produce miracles. Kind of like Jesus. I've done over 100,000 surgeries. I healed people of cancer over and over with the power of love. Robin Williams came in 2014 when he died. He's been with me ever since. He talks to me. He's a guide. I have reincarnated many, many moments. I was Marilyn Monroe, Joan of Arc, Jesus. Humanity's gonna trip about that because they always thought Jesus was a masculine. A mother has to bear children. I have full memory of all my lives. I fully remember being hanged on the cross as Jesus.
I did the math on these 100,000 surgeries across the time that she said she was doing them, and it was like she was having to do like 5,000 a day or an hour. I don't remember exactly what the math worked out, but it was absolutely impossible. She explained how she suspends time and all that. So, yeah, to people like you, me, she sounds nutty as a fruitcake, totally out of her mind. I mean, where does one begin with someone who thinks they have existed as Marilyn Monroe and Joan of Arc and Jesus Christ himself? Quite a lineup. Boy, they were all there at the same time. That would have been an interesting lunch. But we need to try to unpack how she got here and how Amy's delusions of grandeur escalated. And a big part of this was this Father God feeding into this, and how in such a brief amount of time, she went from being a spiritually curious mom with a job at McDonald's to someone who thinks they're God. That's a pretty big leap. I mean, you're bagging up fries and burgers to becoming God, and that doesn't seem inconsistent to her. She cuts herself off from her sisters and her mother and her children, anyone in her life attempting to bring her back to reality. And this deliberate isolation. And of course, she doesn't need these people around her because they remind her of her mediocrity, what she thinks is a mundane life. And how does she square all this up with any followers that she's recruiting? Because she's saying, I'm God doing 100,000 surgeries. And they go, well, weren't you the fry girl at McDonald's? She can't have that. She intentionally ran off with a man with whom she can exist in an echo chamber where they're telling each other what they want to be true. And someone that's telling her that she's destined to save the planet and everybody on it. Perhaps it's possible that this is what Amy had been really looking for. Someone who would validate that she is special, that she's the chosen one, that she has purpose. This so-called God complex is sometimes associated with the narcissistic personality disorder that I've been referring to. And she had this exaggerated sense of self-importance. So look at the people whose lives she's claimed to inhabit. Famous and holy figures, individuals who were special and greatly admired. Jesus was a carpenter, but not her. She was Marilyn Monroe. There's nothing average about her. She had all of these very exciting, glamorous embodiments. And this, again, is just pure narcissism. Amy may have left town with White Eagle, but their honeymoon period was short-lived. The exact details of their split remain unclear, but one thing was certain. Amy wasn't letting go of Mother God as an identity that he had created for her, not by a long shot. She was ready to fully inhabit this new role. Amy soon joined forces with another man named Miguel Lamboy, whom she called Archangel Michael Silver. As you may have guessed, you're going to hear a lot of odd cult names in this case. Now, Miguel took on the role of collaborator and was Amy's frequent cameraman, and together they established themselves in a peaceful riverside home It was there that Amy's notorious group began to take shape. Because remember, up until now, she's just spewing ideology. But she wants power and control, so she has to have someone to have power and control over. And it was Miguel who got Love Has Won off the ground. Amy was the talent, the outgoing, charismatic leader, but she didn't have a head for numbers. And a cult needs money to run. Therefore, Miguel took on the business side of things, but perhaps most importantly, Miguel was the first one to endorse Amy as a deity with otherworldly powers. Miguel claimed that when he first met Amy, he had been diagnosed with advanced lung cancer, but that Amy had miraculously been able to cure him. Now, obviously, I believe this is preposterous. But people looking for answers and comfort, other people who are desperate with that number one need to belong, to be accepted, to be part of something, were taken in by the promise of enlightenment and healing through Amy. And think how terrible this is. If there are people that are sick and suffering and desperate, and somebody just pumps them full of sunshine, somebody does what cults often do, and that is love bomb them. When they first reach out, it's like, oh, you were sent to me. I love you so much. You are enlightened. You are an angel on earth. You're part of us. Come in. We love you. You're anointed. You're special. You're all of this. I can fix you. I can heal you. And then you can join us and be part of everything we're doing. And somebody that goes from hopelessness and helplessness and isolation and loneliness, all of a sudden they're just loved up and they feel so important, when what they really need is medical attention, therapy, treatment. So from 2014 to 2018, Love Has Won began to gain momentum and became a haven for followers who valued Amy's teachings, but it would soon become evident that members of Amy's bizarre congregation, they just weren't equipped to deal with her mounting issues and volatile, unpredictable behavior. And what I mean by that is, after the love bombing, after she would get these people in, she couldn't keep it up. And she started showing really erratic behavior. Amy's family was correct in their allegation of alcoholism. Amy was a heavy drinker, and she could be a downright nasty drunk. You know, there's different kind of drunks, and she was a volatile and violent drunk, prone to outbursts and temper tantrums. She would even sometimes rant on her live stream, screaming out nonsensical insults, some of which we played on my show.
I get up every moment by you whores. Yeah. My atoms. I just need a tequila. It takes 5 rounds of whores to get me a tequila. Are you kidding me? You know what? You can take your half-assed God and shove it. I'm gonna take another tequila shot. I'll do that. Bitch! Where's my tequila shot? It's called evolution. Bitch. Evolution! Bitches!
That's how she was capable of speaking to people who were around her and devoted to her. I did talk to her about these outbursts, but we'll get to more of her behavior later. Now back to Miguel. He was adamant that he was a believer in Amy's gospel, although some referred to him as the real puppet master in all this. He was the one, after all, who dealt with the money. If you want to know what's really going on, that old saying, follow the money, is absolutely true, and it certainly fits here. He was the one who would later successfully turn Love Has Won into a 501c nonprofit charitable organization. How much he's specifically to blame in this mess is debatable, but I'll tell you one thing he was: an enabler. Enablers in cults, boy, they can create all kinds of problems. Amy finding a good partner and then later on loyal followers are what allowed Love Has Won to become a fully operational, full-fledged cult, in my opinion. Think about it this way. Amy was a chaotic person with difficulty staying on track, and if this Love Has Won outfit is just Amy, it's just a woman out there ranting and rambling and getting drunk and posting up diatribes on social media, but with a strategic partner, someone that puts her on track. Now her beliefs get legs. Now they're aimed. They're put out there with a purpose and a target audience, and they're recruiting people that are desperate and have money. Every leader has to first get a follower, and that loyal follower was Miguel. She convinced him that she could save him, and from there he was willing to help her get this group off the ground. In exchange for his loyalty, he also got power. And that power would prove to be the fuel that drove what was going to be a really bizarre group of people. Next time on Mystery and Murder, you're going to meet the members of Amy's cult, some of who came on my show and shared their outrageous experiences firsthand. We're going to dig deep into the group's lifestyle, bizarre rituals, and some troubling allegations of criminal misbehavior. Plus, we're going to introduce you to another key figure in Amy's life, the man she considered her true twin flame. But was he really her soulmate, or was he the catalyst for her ultimate downfall? You're just absolutely not going to want to miss this. It's all coming up, and when you meet these followers, you're going to be stunned at two things. One, how intelligent, articulate, and attractive some of these young women are, and two, how tightly their delusional system is woven. It's so robotic and impenetrable. It's absolutely stunning. Stunning, scary, and heartbreaking all at the same time. You're not going to believe what's coming up next. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.